Hello and welcome to Books and Beyond. My name is Jimmy Bennett. I'm your host. Books and Beyond is a show where we help people personify their aspirations. Before I get to my guest today, I just want to do a quick shout out to CAPA, the Connecticut Authors and Publishers Association. It's a great group. We meet once a month, the third Monday of every month, usually at the Groton Public Library, though there won't be a meeting this month due to the June 19th holiday. But it's a great networking for anybody who has anything to do with the written word, and we encourage you to come down and check us out. And we encourage the members to start coming back in now. Pandemic's over, things are a lot safer, we're getting a lot better. So today I have a repeat offender on my show, Gilmartin. He's been on the show a few times before.
Jim.
And we're going to talk a little bit about his books that he has out already and his brand new one that just came out. So we're pretty excited about that.
Yes.
But I'm sorry, but I dragged you away from Block Island today. You were going to head out today?
Well, there wasn't enough room on the ferries.
Yeah. Wow.
And we made a last-minute decision.
Right.
But we'll go out tomorrow. Not a problem. We've got a reservation tomorrow, and we'll be out there.
And what's coming up this weekend?
Well, Off Soundings Club is a sailing club that's been around for about 85 years. And we go sailboat racing every June.
Right.
So we have 101 boats all signed up for a big race that leaves from Watch Hill. And they'll race over on Friday. And they'll get the block, hang out, have a party, visit some of the attractions.
Yep.
And then, then they'll do a sail, usually around Block Island on Saturday, depending on the weather.
Right.
And have another party, and then they'll hang out, and eventually by Sunday go home. So it's a long-standing traditional sailboat regatta that brings out some of the best racers in the area. And 101 boats, it's over 500 sailors, and
wow,
what could go wrong?
Yeah. That sounds like a party.
I've been around for a few years. I've been 30 years in the club, but the last 12 or 15 or so, I've been involved in running the actual race. So I've got a crew of 15 people who help me, 3 boats. Henry DuPont IV with his big Nor'easter, a classic old motor yacht, is our main signal boat. So it's a significant traditional event and a must-do on the calendar of pretty much any racing sailor.
Yeah. I think somewhere in the dim recesses of my mind, I think when I was younger, I might have been out to see one before. We were joking around before, but like I said, since I was a kid, I've never drawn a sober breath on Block Island. I drank on the way out there, drank while I was there, and pretty much just was hungover on the way home. But
it's so beautiful out there that there's no difference sometimes between the sober breath and just the beauty of the way it affects your mind. Or so I've been told.
So your first 3 books are about sailing. Can't Sail in Jail, Spy Island, and Crew. Tell me a little bit about each one.
Well, I've been a sailor since 1975, I guess, and I got to it late compared to some of my friends, and totally was taken by it. And over the course of time, you sail on a boat with a crew, and the crew can either be one other person or 10 other people. And through that competition and intensity in trying to make a boat go faster, and we're talking 6 knots versus 5.3 knots.
Right. Yeah.
You meet a lot of people, and there's a lot of action and adventure and personalities. So tie that with a career I had in radio and broadcasting, where you were writing a little bit of here, you were talking, ad-libbing, and then writing longer pieces. And one day I just sat down and said, I'm going to try and put this all together. So Crew came out as a sailboat crew from Mystic that kind of suddenly has their leader taken from them by a drug smuggler who is from South America, and he's interested in the piece of property that this particular person owned, and they want to take it over. And now it's a battle of what do you do when that happens? And the crew has to get together. They all, fortunately, have a military background, All of them happen to be pilots. So there's a nice opportunity for action.
Oh,
And then we travel around, and we got San Francisco, we're in Mystic, and then we head up into South America.
Oh, wow.
And for a kind of a dramatic conclusion. And it turns into a action thriller adventure where the average guy and several women, they have to fight for basically their freedom, their rights.
Wow.
And of course, there's a couple of women involved, and there's a love interest with our
Yeah.
protagonist.
All right.
So it's an interesting story,
No, it sounds great.
covering all the bases.
Yeah.
You know, there's happiness, there's death, there's shootouts in the high mountains of the Sierra Nevada to Santa Marta Mountains. Plus, my first touch into a little bit of mysticism, using some of the indigenous people in South America, the Kogi Indians especially, who basically live in the mountains and have a very close relationship with nature. And that affects the way they live their lives and their thinking and who they worship and who they don't. And a lot of that comes into play as well. So
Wow. Have you been to South America?
never.
Good, good.
My sister has, if that helps.
No.
We
but
talk
it's-
about it.
Yeah. No, it's just interesting. You know, I always, we were talking about that on my last show with Rose Young, you know, research and, you know,
Right.
reading things and all the interesting things you learn and stuff while I've learned so much. And a lot of it, I don't even use in my books, but you just come across it and you're like, oh, wow, I didn't know that, or wow, you know.
You
So-
only know so much, and
Yeah.
they say write about what you know.
Right.
But that's only to get started.
Yeah.
You really write about what you're curious about.
Right.
And then we're very fortunate in that, you know, the internet and there is resources.
Yeah.
And people have experienced a lot of things.
Yep.
So you just take from their experiences. And the fortunate thing about a writer, as you know, is you can control the environment
Right.
in many ways.
Right.
So you fit in the story, you fit in what you want to use,
Yep.
and you hope that it becomes an interesting escape for the readers.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And then Can't Sail in Jail.
Can't Sail in Jail. That was stewing around for many years, but it's based on a kind of a true story. The premise is essentially a local guy smuggled 20 tons of marijuana into Connecticut back in the 70s and 80s. He got arrested for it, along with 30 other people. They went to trial, and they kind of got, convicted. Mainly 4 of them, I believe. But it was marijuana, and back then it was a serious thing, and
Yeah.
now it's not such a big
Yeah.
serious thing. So he's off living in a nice southern community,
Yeah.
far from here, and it was a cash business. But I took the story from people who had been connected with it,
Right.
who really didn't know what was going on at the time. They were focused on sailboat racing.
Right.
Because with the money that he was able to earn, he was able to buy a racing sailboat. And they put together a campaign, very successful. And sadly, the boat that they built literally was just carved up into pieces of fiberglass about a year ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's been hanging around for a while.
Yeah.
But again, that comes back to the crew and the conversations and the interactions and how they respond to their adversity, whatever it might be, whether it's trying to find more breeze or trying to deal with somebody who's maybe had a little too much to drink, or people who maybe want to play games with their power
Right.
in the sailing infrastructure and so on. And then we throw in the middle of that a couple of young immigrants, Albanians, who used to smuggle guns in Europe. They decided that was a little bit too dangerous for them. So they opened up a gas and go gas station. And that all ties together to a penultimate conclusion at the end,
Wow.
where the police actually, were able to solve the crime and pull in some arrests. The sailboaters go on, and the gas and go guys, continue with their enterprise to try and make money selling gas.
Yeah.
So, strange combination, but it's a fun little ride,
Right.
and several things are true, including a couch that gets thrown off the Gold Star Bridge. So
How did that go?
don't tell anybody.
Wait till the statute of limitations are up. on
Right,
that one.
statute. Hopefully.
Yeah.
Right. It might still be down there.
Yeah. And then Spy Island. Now that one's always fascinated me.
Yeah, I've always. I was in the Air Force. I was fortunate enough to flunk out of college at an early age. So, 1 year after I'd been in, this is during the Vietnam era. The choice was you could go in the Army, or try and beat it by. I went in the Air Force, and by pure happenstance, I was selected to go to a language school, and became a Russian linguist for the Air Force. So I spent 4 years monitoring the Soviet Air Force in East Germany, and it was very much connected to not spies, but that geopolitical world. Right. You know, we're fighting the Russians, the communists at the time, and we're snooping on them and so on. So spying was very much a part of my mentality and fantasy, whatever. Then I came back out and, 15, 20 years later, I started thinking about a story. And basically you have a guy, this is a Spycraft 101, he wants to gamble, so he gets himself in a gambling situation at Coney Island with Russians, Brighton Beach, and they kind of set him up because they know that he works for a local submarine manufacturer. And they get him to steal a secret, and he's deep in debt, and then he has second thoughts, and he runs away to Block Island to hide out. Well, he's got this secret, but not only do the Russians want it, so do the rest of the world. So we have, the largest submarine force in the world, but there's probably 20 other countries with significant submarine fleets, older craft and nowhere near as capable as the U.S., but they're always looking for an edge. So what you basically have is an almost serial comedy of, 8, 9 spies showing up at Block Island.
Yeah.
Literally, showing up at the oar.
See,
I wrote a poem about it.
let's hear it.
Yeah. People ask me, what's Spy Island about? Well, let me see if I can try this. Spy Island. Booze and bets, broken hearts, stolen secrets. Old school spies, government lies, sailors at the oar drinking mudslides. A murder, a manhunt, submarine sabotage, the feds, the Reds, digital espionage. Patrika's in the cellar, Luke's on the lam, even the Southeast Lighthouse is in on the scam. Now, you can go from Coney Island to Block Island. You can run, hide, and spy, but make no mistake, they're coming for you, and someone has to die.
Very good. I like that.
It's just fun.
Yeah.
It's a fun adventure. If you've been to Block,
yeah,
you'll love it. Local, you'll recognize a lot of the areas. Southeast Light plays a big part.
Well, that's what I've always loved about that story. I mean, I gotta believe that somewhere in the history of our local sub manufacturer, that some guy sold some information to somebody.
Sure.
You know what I mean? I don't know if they all got caught or not or whatever, but when you're talking about, I don't know how many thousands of people work there,
It's certainly compartmentalized.
Yep.
And I have some good friends who work there. And I must tell you, even as we were developing the storyline, nobody was giving up information.
Right.
But they would roll their eyes when you'd say something or, things
Right.
like that. So the level of the technology is still a fairly well-held secret,
Right.
I think. But again, as the writer in a novel,
Yeah.
you have the ability to create the parameters. And it's not within the realm of science.
Right.
In this particular case, they've developed a communications platform that uses laser to penetrate the water, and that's always been the problem for the submarines. If they're down at their 800-foot depth or so, it's hard for them to communicate.
Right.
So they have to come to the surface to get their orders, and as soon as they come to the surface, they become exposed.
Right.
And that becomes dangerous. So if you can stay down there, that's much better. So
yeah.
that's why everybody wants it.
I just, it's great for this area, block in London. And, once again, that's what I always love the fact that when you write, people can go and see places, you know what I mean?
Right.
That you've been, you know what I mean? That's always a fascinating thing when you read about a place, but then you actually go there and go, oh, this is just like he wrote,
And that's the fun part, because I've been to all these places, for the most part, except South America.
Yeah.
But you can imagine what might happen. Or
Right.
there are times where you just go and sit and contemplate and say, I can imagine this happening here and this happening, or these characters showing up in this location.
Right.
And having their dialogue here,
Yeah.
That's the fun part of, I think, of being a writer, is being able to take your normal life and then adding a little excitement to it.
Right.
Bring in some spies and bring in some guns, or,
Yep.
Bring in some beautiful women, and all of a sudden we're dancing, and there you go.
Yep. So now, your latest endeavor.
Yeah, I love it. This is Castle Fires. Again, it comes from a lot of things. I have a daughter, and my daughter, she grew up with her mother. After a few years, we went off in different directions, and this story is basically about a daughter who never really met her father, and the father wakes up dead one day, and apparently he's been murdered. It happens to be he's an entrepreneur, a multimillionaire, and he's built a castle in the Northwest Hills of Connecticut, and she suddenly inherits his empire. So she comes into this small little town with a castle and is like, oh, here I am, what's happening? And it turns out that not only has there been a murder, but the town itself is got a big conflict, because they want to bring them all into the small town to bring in tourists and cash and so on. So, this works right in with, I've been involved with tourism and advertising for 20 years.
Right.
So this plays in that game, and I've dropped it into Northwest Connecticut.
Yeah.
And she meets a bunch of characters. All my books have lots of characters. It's character driven in so many ways. And you're writing dialogue all the time. You're having conflicts and togetherness. And she has to deal with all these individual people. Plus, she's a 30-year-old woman who suddenly is in charge of a multi-million-dollar corporation that was built on the entrepreneurial spirit of one individual, with again, working with his friends and the people and the things that he was interested in. And he wasn't interested in just one thing. He got his start in fuels, racing fuels, but then expanded off into television and expanded off into digital activities and laser lights and things like that, all different kinds of high-tech stuff.
I remember now, you used to make a lot of like infomercials and stuff for hotels. Right?
Sure.
In the area. Because I think you did one with me at the Seahorse.
We did one at the Seahorse.
Yeah.
Back in the day.
Yeah, yeah.
And that was very successful for Zach.
Yep.
We were in television. Mystic View TV ran for 20-odd years in the local hotels. We had a program that ran in Hartford hotels, Newport hotels, the Providence hotels. But what happened is the internet comes along so fast, we thought we were on top of the topic by putting a video into the hotels, and you can only see it in your room.
Right.
Well, now, of course, you can go anywhere you want. You just pick up your phone, and there it is.
Yep.
So that network continues to expand, and so now I'm basically writing full time.
Now, this is you got into writing this book about the castle.
Yeah.
Which is sort of outside of your usual purview.
No sailing involved in this one at all until the very, 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 very end.
So, where did you get your inspiration for doing this?
Well, I was fortunate as a videographer. My company was hired by a gentleman in Woodstock, Connecticut, Chris Mark. Everybody's heard of him if they haven't. I'm mentioning his name. And Chris built a castle. He built it cost him about $7 million at the time. And now he's trying to sell it.
He built this for his teenage daughters,
He
right?
built it for his young daughter.
Like a Disney castle.
We actually went and did a video of his daughters playing princesses
Right.
at the castle. We had the real castle.
I think I saw a news story about that a year or two ago.
There has been a couple of
Yeah.
news stories because, again, he's trying to sell the castle.
Right.
Because the kids are growing up now.
Right.
But it's a magnificent piece of property, 300 acres, and it's a castle that's spires and rooms and made out of stone.
I remember looking at it. I mean, it was elegant. I mean, the inside was beautiful. I mean, they had a lot of nice. I think I remember some huge hot tub or pool or something. And,
There was a lot of that.
yeah.
There's a lot of places to relax and enjoy.
Right.
Many bedrooms and a large basement and stuff. So I took the concept, gigantic kitchen, beautiful, magnificent kitchen, beautiful view of the lake.
Right. Yeah.
It has a moat around it, you know, and
It's kind of a step up from building your kid a treehouse, huh?
yeah, a stone house, right?
Yeah.
Stone cold stories, but yeah. So we just stole that whole concept.
Well, that's great, though. I mean,
and
that's
moved it.
Yeah.
Moved it to an area because part of the key part, if you're into geology and nature, the Earth's moving all the time. We don't notice it. And in certain areas, it moves more than others. And you may not know this, but a few years ago, maybe 5 million, the Taconic Mountains were about as high as the Himalayas. This is what scientists have suggested based on their research. So it fascinates me how the Earth changes. And that's why we moved it to the Northwest Hills, because that area up there near Twin Lakes and so on, that is kind of an unusual area. Some of the original iron ore mines in America were found there. Colt and other manufacturers had their guns, or initially the metal for the guns came out of those mines. And then eventually they found better, purer minerals further away and larger and so on.
Right.
But there's always been a natural geological connection up in the Northwest Hills. So we put that all there. And of course, you have to add drama to every novel you write. And in this case, our young ingenue, Juliet, she finds herself in a situation where in building the mall, they've drilled down into the rock and they've created a new crack and a fault in the rock that's now beginning to create a flood.
Oh, okay.
And now the castle is in danger and the town is in danger. So they have to somehow bring together various forces. And, you know, we think of heroes. Well, I've got excavator guys, demolition guys, bulldozer guys. They're the heroes here. They get involved and they all have their role to play. So again, it's another character-driven event where, meanwhile, you know, we're trying to solve a murder,
Right.
but at the same time, we're trying to prevent the castle from being flooded.
Right.
And we're also trying to wonder, how is this town going to survive and deal with the forces? One side likes the mall, the other side doesn't want anybody to come in because
Right.
they like the peaceful nature of where they are. So
Yeah, and you're used to the tourism part, of course. You know,
right.
the town looking for.
Yeah, you may be familiar with a couple of efforts to expand the development in downtown Mystic
Yeah.
that have run into trouble.
Yeah.
And one of the most powerful government agencies, as we may all know already, is the zoning board.
Right.
You know, so
Right.
the head of the zoning board, a major character in the Castle Fires.
Well, I think Mystic's going to have all it can handle this year, anyways, being the fourth. What are they designated? The fourth ranked destination vacation spot in America.
Fourth ranked now?
Fourth in America.
Already it was jammed on Memorial Day weekend, I
Yeah.
understand. Just wall-to-wall people.
Yep.
So, whew,
I know.
step back.
I know.
And great for the businesses.
Yeah.
That's what
Yep.
they want.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
But again, traffic's going to be a little
Right.
issue.
Well, maybe it's more people that'll come and buy our books too. So you know.
Well, that's what I'm hoping.
Yeah, I can't wait to get into your castle because, of course, you know, I write about Gillette's castle,
Exactly.
so it's you know.
And you do a great job. I want to tell you, your voice as Watson, as the second, it's perfect, I think. Probably
thank you.
better than original. But I mean,
Yeah.
I really think you've done a nice job in capturing that. And I found it fascinating. Just, wow, I'm right back there.
Thanks.
Totally in there.
Yeah, well, that's one thing I do like to do, and sometimes I say it's chickening out, but writing a murder mystery now in the modern age is tougher. I mean, you got DNA, you got forensics. There's stuff that everybody knows now from watching TV. There's nothing to really shock them or surprise them.
Exactly. There's no mystery anymore.
Almost. You know what I mean?
And there's a certain amount of digging into the mentality of the individual who commits the murder.
Right.
Okay. My preference is the murder maybe is there, and you've got to have people dealing with it, but the murder causes other things to happen.
Right.
And that's what Castle Fire is about. And the people and the way they react to the way those things happen moves the plot and moves the characters. And then, the police will eventually come up with a murderer, maybe, and who might it be? Will they get away? There could be a surprise ending, and maybe there's a sequel, whatever. But, but in the end, it's more important how the people who are affected by it all, how they develop and evolve, and you hope that there's a forward sense of positiveness, and they're going to be happier and better in their lives in some way.
Now, you've actually been to that castle, so you're. What do you think? Do you think an individual will buy it, or do you think somebody will turn it into an attraction?
It certainly could be turned into an attraction. But it's going to be a unique individual who finds it.
Right.
I mean, obviously, money's not an object for them.
Yeah.
And it'd be a matter of whether you want to, live in that kind of an environment.
Right.
I mean, it's spacious, but it's more vertical than it is horizontal.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And it is made out of stone.
Yeah.
Beautiful location.
I know. Like I said, I've seen the pictures on it. I can't wait to get into the book. You got nice descriptions of the castle and.
Well, it's interesting. There's lots of videos out there. Look up Chris Mark Castle.
Oh, okay.
There's lots of videos on YouTube.
Yep.
And they've done some tours, and we did a few back in 2010 is when we were doing the work on it.
Oh, good.
And again, you see how it in the early stages.
Right.
And it's interesting. They brought in a lot of labor from New York City, mostly Russians. So there was an air of Russian language and that whole thing going on when they were building.
Well, you know what?
Fascinating enterprise.
It's been great, but we're out of time.
Wow, goes fast.
So it does, doesn't it?
Thank you, Jim.
So
Appreciate
thank you very much for being on, and
All right, good to see you.
We'll be talking to you again soon. So
Yes, we will.
All right.
Block Island.
All right. Get out there. Thank you very much. This has been Books and Beyond. We'll see you next time.